You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with CEO and founder of Groundplane studio marketing agency and Peace Over Pieces domestic abuse nonprofit. Coming from a multinational family, growing up in the conservative state of Missouri was an interesting experience for this week's guest. Being made to feel different due to the ethnicity of her parents wasn't the only hurdle she had to overcome, as she was also a victim of domestic abuse. At just 16, realizing the severity of her family's situation, she founded a dropshipping company in an attempt to earn money to move her mother and siblings out of home. The setting up of her online store, Soak, gave the ambitious young founder an insight into what would become her entrepreneurial future. In junior year of college, inspiration struck her again as she brainstormed ways to pay her tuition fees, and so was the beginning of Groundplane Studio. Fast forward 6 months, her marketing agency now boasts over 50 clients, including the likes of Lisa Vanderpump and Postmates, and her non-profit organization to help domestic abuse survivors connect and share stories is in full bloom. Sharing her journey, here's what it's like to be Clara Baldwin. Before we get stuck into the episode, I just wanted to say that if there is a drop in sound quality throughout, I'm very sorry. But in respect of social distancing during COVID-19, I've had to record episodes remotely. In this challenging time, we're all trying our best, so I really hope everyone is staying safe and that you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Clara. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. I like to start by going all the way back and just chatting a little bit about what it was like for you growing up in Missouri and your experiences there.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I was raised in Missouri. I still am. I was raised in Columbia, Missouri, which is in the center. And so Missouri is like in the center of the United States, and I'm in the center of that. So basically smack dab in the USA. But it's a Midwest little town. I'd say about 150,000 people was the population there growing up. I had 5 family members, 1 older brother, 1 little sister. My mom is an immigrant from Thailand, and my dad is an immigrant from Germany. So they moved here when they were around 8 years old. So they're pretty Americanized, but I did grow up with different culture, which is nothing like Missouri. Everyone in Missouri is extremely white American. So going everywhere, people think that I'm a little different from my upbringing. I had a pretty normal school experience, but I'll get into it a little later. What inspired my nonprofit was that I was raised in a pretty abusive home due to my dad. And that kind of inspired my journeys into my entrepreneurial self.
I believe the first thing that you did was when you were around 16, correct me if I'm wrong, but you founded a dropshipping boutique called Soak. Can you tell me a bit more about that and how the idea came about and why the idea came about?
Yes. So I started the boutique when I was, around 16. So growing up in kind of an abusive home, I realized around age 12 was when things got really bad in my household. My dad has bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, almost like everything we do or say can be blown up upon. Like he would get mad over tiny things around the house against my mom, and become physically and emotionally abusive. And so it made me think like eventually we're going to have to escape the situation. And financially we had nothing because he had control of all the finances. And I just remember my mom sitting me down and being like, we need to figure out a plan on how to get out of the house, because it was that bad that we couldn't, speak about it normally with my dad. He was so controlling and possessive that it was to the point where we had to sneak around and talk about this stuff when he was at work. And I had to convince my mom essentially that I wanted to do something to help her financially so she could get out of the house. And so did my siblings. But my sister was young at the time. She was about 5 years younger than me, so she wasn't really involved with the financial scheme. My brother worked at a grocery store called Sam's Club. So, we weren't making much cash at the time, and everything my mom made, my dad took away from her. So when I turned 16, I was a sophomore in high school, and I just was sitting there and I was, stuck on thinking, what can I make with no money basically to make money eventually. And it was hard because I worked at restaurants like 40 hours a week, and it wasn't cutting it for what we needed. So I thought back to my childhood, me and my brother were kind of nerds in a way. Like we always liked playing video games and designing websites for fun. I was like, websites, like that would be a good thing to get into maybe where I could make money. So I had, I think, like $500 in my account. I created a website, named it Soak Boutique, because I was like, oh, I could do a little clothing store. Those are trending right now. This is when Instagram was fairly new. And I noticed that boutiques got so much attention online. Nowadays, the space is so crowded, you can barely get into it. There's so many ambassadors and things like that. But at the time, I noticed that loci, I don't know, do you know what loci bracelets are?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, they're a big thing in America, at least I know. They're these bracelets that went viral because they have the mud of the, I don't know, Mediterranean Sea or mountain or something in it. I don't know. And it went to charity. And it was a
Okay.
new concept of donating something to charity to get a product. And now everyone does that. But back then, I feel like they were the only one. So I opened up Soak Boutique, drop shipped from different manufacturers and stores. That way I did not have to pay out of pocket and get any back stock or anything. I didn't have to have supplies at my house. I could literally pay it and they would ship it and get the product for me. And so I developed that, started messaging influencers, hey, I'll give you a free shirt, free bracelet if you post about the company. And I started doing that every week. It started taking off. And then within 2 years, I think we reached like 40,000 followers on social medias total. I started making more money where I could finally get to the point of getting my mom out of the situation, also paying for a bit of my college. But yeah, senior year rolled around, I had this money, and not that much, like I wasn't doing insanely good, but enough to get my mom out of the house and pay for her rent for a couple of months until she got on her feet. And this was with, of course, with my brother's help and everything. But yeah, that was the beginning of Soak Boutique, and I'm forever grateful for that opportunity and that vision. I no longer manage it at all. I sold it off, and it's under rebranding right now, but it is my little beginning, I'd like to say.
Yeah, it's amazing. And first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry to hear that you and your family had to go through that. But I think that's such an incredible thing that you did for your mom and for your family. And at 16, it's so much initiative and so much, I don't know, not many of us have that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, to think, I'm going to start a company so that I can make money to help my mom out. That's really incredible to hear that story. And so I guess leading on from that, having been through that experience, I know you didn't start it for, I guess, the reason of just wanting your own company. But when it did come to thinking about whether you wanted to go to college or not, why did you decide to go to college instead of pursuing that entrepreneurial spark that you so clearly had, and you were successful at it? So I guess I'm curious why you didn't go on to create more companies or expand so rather than going to university.
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly always have had college on my goal list. Like I didn't think college was an option. Um, I just thought like, what if something doesn't work out? I need to have that degree. I need to have that experience. And I also love to network, and I wanted to meet people in college as well. But I also knew that one day, even in college, I was going to start, a new company, and along the lines, I could do both. So I truly believe if you put your mind to it, you can do really anything. There's no such thing as too much on your plate. You can find ways to do it. So yeah, I guess I always had college on the mind. I didn't really want to skip that step in my life.
What did you end up studying in college?
So I did a double major in marketing and computer science with an emphasis in entrepreneurship.
Oh, wow. That's a lot, even your college degree, as well as, all of your other businesses that you were doing.
Yeah, yeah. I like to be busy. I mean, if you knew me in real life, I always have something going on. But yeah, so college came around, and then I actually launched my current business that I do full-time junior year, which is called Groundplane Studio Marketing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next. So,
Yeah.
what was it about the setting up of a new company or that kind of an environment to place yourself in that drew you in to want to go for it again, whilst you're also balancing the task of getting your degree too?
Well, I went to an extremely expensive private college called Westminster in Fulton, Missouri. And even with scholarships and everything, it was about 40,000 a year.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, it is a lot of money. And I just remember since I gave up soak and I wasn't doing that anymore, got through my freshman year financially, I needed to think of the next step because I'm honestly going to this college with a lot of rich kids. They don't really even have jobs, they just focus on their studies. And I was, meanwhile, drowning in these finances. So I was like, okay, next step, I'm going to open up a marketing agency. And at first, the focus was website design because I love doing website design. I thought that that was going to be the moneymaker, and I was going to get a ton of clients. But then I found out quickly that websites weren't enough. And I scaled it to a full service agency where I would provide graphic design, post scheduling, website design, logo design, everything you could think about marketing. I was like, I could do it all for that client and their business. And then I found that the change I made from just website design to that, I was getting clients way quicker than I thought, and got to scale it way better. And it was more money as well.
How did you go about even approaching that first client? Because I feel like that's such a hurdle for so many people, is that, they have ideas, they make them come to life, but then they don't know how to get people interested in them. So what do you think it was about you or your business model that made people buy into you?
Oh my gosh, I'm like smiling right now thinking about my first phone call to my first client because I remember I had no confidence at all. Like I was shaking, and I remember she messaged me. She's a nonprofit for foster animals around the world. She wanted to raise money for them and sell bracelets and stuff. And it's crazy because she was my first client. Now we're up to like 10,000 followers, and she got recognized by House of Representatives the other week. But thinking back on the first phone call, I remember I was like, I just need to be myself, honestly. And as I go on and get on these phone calls every day, I recognize that if you make the process seem extremely simple and easy, which it should be for your client, and you just go down the list of this is why you should choose me, and just keep it organized and keep it personable. Because I remember I got on that phone call and I just started talking to her, you know, as I would with any human, instead of being like, point one, two, three, I want to sell you this, buy this. No, if you just get to know them and then tell them your services, tell them that you'll be there for them, make it personable, they're more likely to go with you as their prospect compared to other ones.
And so were you just, I don't know, picking brands that you liked and reaching out to them, or how did you compile, I guess, a target client list to go after when you started your business?
Yeah, good question. Lots of ways. So in the beginning, okay, a little backstory I forgot to mention. I worked for a corporate marketing agency in December of 2019 when I graduated, and I
Okay.
got laid off the next month. So,
Oh
but
no.
yeah, I was once again my back against the wall as always in my life. And I had to figure out a way to make Groundplane Studio my full-time job. Like I was making the leap from a safe salary to nothing. Like I had to come up with that money and get my clients. So I just remember I would go to, a local coffee shop every day, and I would research different ways on how to get clients. And I think the best way is through LinkedIn marketing. I would reach out to professionals in that area, try and get on a call with them, um, just so we could talk about a potential package they could sign up for. I know Upwork, Freelancer, Fiverr, those are amazing places where people are constantly posting about um, what they need for marketing, and they're looking for freelancers. So I would start applying to all those websites about 10 times a day in the beginning. Like I would get on there every single hour and submit proposals. And then suddenly everyone started flooding in to the point where I was getting too overwhelmed and I needed to hire people. So it's only been 6 months, and now I think I have about 50 clients.
That's crazy. And congratulations. That's absolutely amazing how quickly you've done that. But what do you think it was that kept you going through those hard times? You know, like we all struggle with motivation or that feeling of crazy overwhelm. And, you know, I guess that's the difference between some people. Some people get in bed and hide, you know, from it, and others react to it. So what do you think it was that kept you going back to that coffee shop every day and just plowing through emails until someone said yes?
Yeah, it is the hardest thing as an entrepreneur because you don't have the safety of an office, of a staff, and that secured salary. I think that's the hardest part about having your business is just believing in yourself. And I love that term imposter syndrome. Like, don't get caught up in imposter syndrome. That's where you think that you're not enough, that you're fake, that you don't have the skills or what it takes to give someone what they need in marketing. You just need to believe that you researched enough, you have the skills to do it, what you're saying to that client is true. When I tell someone now, like, I can give you the most personable, hands-on, fast marketing. Like, I emphasize that I have a really quick turnaround rate, that I want to be your friend. Basically, I want you to come with me and be transparent. I believe in those words, and I believe that I have very efficient marketing. But yeah, and just to keep going, there's going to be bad days and good days as any job, and you have to remember that. Just drop all your work stress when you get home. Now I take the time to completely shut off my technology at night, do a little hobby I like, or watch a show, and just relax and know that everything's going to be okay and everything turns out okay. You just have to stay positive.
You know, like you said, I think I already have about 50 plus clients now in just 6 months, which is crazy. And some of those include the likes of Lisa Vanderpump and Postmates, which is so cool. I watch Real Housewives. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. So I guess maybe can you tell me if you remember the time when you know you really did sit back and watch these clients come in and want to work with you and think, wow, you know, this could actually work. I've actually made this work for myself. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, and I still have it like every time I get a new client. I don't know, it's just even the big names like Lisa Vanderpump, and how I just stumble upon them through connections. Usually they are through connections, and then they'll refer me to them. That's how those happen. And then the Postmates happen with the Crave app. We started from scratch, 0 followers. Now they have about 30,000 followers, and they have all these affiliate marketing partnerships. But I don't know. I feel like almost you don't realize it's happening. Like when it's happening, you're like, oh, this is great, but what's the next thing? Like, I feel like my brain never settles on it. But I am super grateful. And I honestly think that those clients are just as important as my smaller clients and my smaller startups. Like, I feel like they're one big family. I don't really treat one better than the other, but it is pretty cool to make it to the top in some names and to be recognized for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm hearing all of these numbers and I'm super impressed at how quickly you can grow people's social channels. I think that's insane. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you have an ultimate ingredient or a secret to how you boost those followings so quickly, or how you really tap into that digital marketing and make it work for them?
Yeah, there's so many different ways. It just depends on your niche as well. But obviously, hashtag targeting is my biggest thing because I like organic interaction, affiliate marketing, and having people tag you in their pictures, share. If you have content that people share, that's really big as well. There's just so much in that space, though, to talk about. It really depends on your strategy, but my best thing is outsourcing some growth clerks. So I tell, the people I work with, it's good to have at least 3 people working on your growth per day, because most people have one, or they have one marketer that's doing everything on their own. So when you hire about 3 for, they get on your account 3 to 5 times a week for X amount of dollars per month, it will help you grow way faster. Because if you have one person, you can't really rely on them to get on there 24/7, especially if they do that full time and they have so many accounts. So if you get some people who don't have as many accounts and all they do is growth per day, that'll help you grow for sure.
So, alongside your marketing business that you're doing, you have also set up Piece Over Pieces nonprofit. So, we've heard a little bit about the reasons why you set that up, but can you just go into a little bit more detail as to why you wanted to turn those experiences you had growing up into a platform to help others?
Yes, yeah. So my junior year of college, I think, I was laying there, and if you know me, I have these weird moments of like manifestation, and something will pop in my head and I will not stop until it's a thing. So I'm not kidding. I think I thought of Piece Over Pieces like I don't know, this June 2018 or something. And the next day, I had the website up and paid for, and I had podcast equipment shipped to me from Amazon Prime. I kind of go nuts with those things. So I just laid in bed and I was like, I've always dreamt of having a nonprofit, something that could benefit other people, help other people. And I just wanted something that I could go to for my self fulfillment and not make money from it, because everything I was doing in life was surrounded by money. And I personally that's not my character. I don't care about money enough to make my whole life surround it. So I developed Piece Over Pieces, thought of the name, just, I don't know, again, sitting there and thinking of words that describe tragedy versus being whole again. So I thought piece and then pieces put together. And yeah, so developed the website. I wanted to do a podcast because I couldn't find any podcasts that were really personal stories, like different guests who were survivors of abuse, because I was personally wanting to hear other people's stories. When you have trauma and baggage from your past, all you want to do is just relate to people to make you feel normal, in my opinion. So I was like, oh, I can just do this myself. Let me reach out to people with my marketing skills and find people. And there is a huge community of people who have been through abuse on social media. And then once the story went up, I would collect donations and it would go to that specific victim.
What do you want to see the future hold for your nonprofit, or do you have an end goal or an ultimate goal or anything like that?
I think it's always going to be a thing to have this nonprofit. Like, I never will end it, I guess. It will have an ultimate goal of just helping as many people as I can, and share as many stories as I can. One new thing I'm doing is an anthology book. So I'm going to collect stories from everyone that I'm coming across in direct messages on social media. And they are working on stories that I'm going to put together in a book. So hopefully that will be released sometime in 2021. But yeah, ultimately, I just really enjoy reaching out to these people. They have incredible stories that will blow your mind on how a human can go through those things. And they're usually the most loving and social people now, but they just need, they need a hand to get out of those situations. And I want to be that hand.
You have seen such fast growth in such a short space of time. You've also had another company that did really well for itself and served its purpose for you. So I'd be interested to know if you do have a personal definition of what the word success would mean to you.
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I think success in my mind is when you feel like you are your best version of yourself, I guess. Because I feel like everyone has different end goals and everything, but personally, I feel successful when I help others and when I'm following my dreams and my passions instead of, going the safe route. Personally, I just want to be happy. And I think success and happiness goes hand in hand.
Just to round everything off, and I like to ask everyone this question. If I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, having been through everything you've been through, both in your career and also in your personal life and just life in general, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give that 10-year-old self moving forward?
I would definitely tell my 10-year-old self to just have faith and be confident, because growing up I had none, and I was doing all these things, but I wasn't even proud of myself. I thought that I was almost an imposter, like we talked about. Like, I was just trying to get through everything, but now I think I've gained the confidence to realize that I did all of that, and now I'm here, the complete opposite life of what I was raised in, and I built that myself. So I would tell my 10-year-old self, just have faith and believe in yourself, and everything will turn out okay.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I know it's going to inspire so many others. So I really appreciate you giving up your time to chat to me.
Of course, and I appreciate you for inviting me. I had a blast.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Clara's services and her nonprofit, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.